Hi, I'm going to read a passage from the Princeton Encyclopedia of Poetry and Poetics describing deep image poetry. I'm going to put my bifocals on because the print is very small and there's a lot of abbreviations. And then I'm going to read a couple of poems from James Wright's great book, The Branch Will Not Break. All right. The deep image poets were developing a poetics of the psychological deep image. Using Spanish, and to a lesser extent French surrealism as a source, they experimented with associative techniques that would circumvent discursive thought and tap into unconscious realms. Bly called his practice a leaping poetry, which manifested a long floating leap around which the work of art in ancient times used to gather itself like steel shavings around the magnet. Among deep image poets, one can draw a distinction between those who create discontinuous leaps within a minimal, denuded landscape and those for whom the leap implies access to a world of numinous presence. So the deep image poetry is inspired by surrealism. It tries to tap into something ancient. It tries to make the poem move sometimes into numinous realms, to a world of mystery. And it tries to do this by using an associative method, and that sometimes begins with very quotidian or daily images. All right, I think that's a pretty good description of deep image poetry. Here are a couple of them. A message hidden in an empty wine bottle that I threw into a gully of maple trees one night at an indecent hour. Women are dancing around a fire by a pond of creosote and wastewater from the river in the dank fog of Ohio. They are dead. I am alone here, and I reach for the moon that dangles cold on a dark vine. The unwashed shadows of blast furnaces from Moundsville, West Virginia, are sneaking across the pits of strip mines to steal grapes in heaven. Nobody else knows I'm here. All right, come out, I am dying. I'm growing old. An owl rises from the cutter bar of a hay rake. Of course, where's that owl flying to? How my fever left. I can still hear her. She hobbles downstairs to the kitchen. She is swearing at the dishes. She slaps her grease rags into a basket and slings it over her skinny forearm, crooked with hatred, and stomps outside. I can hear my father downstairs, standing without a coat in the open door, calling to the old bat across the snow. She's forgotten her black shawl, but I see her through my window, sneering, flapping upward toward some dark church on the hill. She has to meet somebody else, and it's no use. She won't listen. She's gone. Here's one that's in the textbook. A blessing. Just off the highway to Rochester, Minnesota, twilight bounds softly forth on the grass, and the eyes of those two Indian ponies darken with kindness. They have come gladly out of the willows to welcome my friend and me. We step over the barbed wire into the pasture where they have been grazing all day alone. They ripple tensely. They can hardly contain their happiness that we have come. They bow shyly as wet swans. They love each other. There is no loneliness like theirs. At home once more, They begin munching the young tufts of spring in the darkness. I would like to hold the slenderer one in my arms, for she has walked over to me and nuzzled my left hand. She is black and white. Her mane falls wild on her forehead, and the light breeze moves me to caress her long ear that is delicate as the skin over a girl's wrist. Suddenly, I realize that if I stepped out of my body, I would break into blossom. And here's the last poem in the book, which is one of the best placed poems I've ever seen in any book. A dream of burial. Nothing was left of me but my right foot and my left shoulder. They lay white as the skein of a spider floating in a field of snow toward a dark building, tilted and stained by wind. Inside the dream I dreamed on. A parade of old women sang softly above me, faint mosquitoes near still water. So I waited in my corridor. I listened for the sea to call me. I knew that somewhere outside the horse stood saddled, browsing in grass, waiting for me.